Welcome back to the Young Woman Flourish podcast. I'm your host, Shania Cherie. I am super excited, y'all. Like, this year, Young Woman Flourish is back better than ever, but it's different. This year, we're going to have guests on episodes. This year, we're coming back more honest, more transparent, and more vulnerable than we've ever been before. And even just more funnier. Like, the vibes is just going to be hitting. The vibes is going to be vibing. So I'm super excited for this week's guest. This is the first guest ever that Young Woman Flourish has ever had, so I'm so very excited. Not only is this my Clark Atlanta sister, but this is also my sister in faith, and she's such a beautiful spirit, and she is the founder of TMK Artistry, and she is a wonderful makeup artist. It is the MUAK, it's Kato, K. Yes, y'all. Kay's here.
Hey, what's up? I'm so excited to be on your first episode of this season and be the first guest of this season.
The first.
I'm very excited and honored, really, and thankful.
Yes, I'm excited you're here.
It's my girl.
Yes, y'all, this is like my sister. So I'm super excited that you're here. And before we even get into the episode and even get into that title, you know, we always start off with Young Woman Flourish podcast, our SOTD, which is the scripture of the day. So this week's SOTD comes from 1 John chapter 4 verse 8. I'm reading from the NIV version, and it is, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And I just really love this scripture because in my relationship with God, that's one of the biggest things I take away is like learning that God truly is love.
Pure love.
And like just helps me realize like what love is. And I think it's going to be super interesting and really connected to what we're going to talk about today, because as y'all see from the title, it is called Broken. And as I was reflecting, because first and foremost, Happy New Year! Happy New Year! It is a new year. We survived another year. Congratulations to you. So it is a new year. And as I was reflecting on 2022 and just coming and transitioning into this new year, one of my highest words on the vocabulary list for me was broken. For like what 2022 was for me. Like, it was just like, oh God, that was a broken year. Like, that was a year of like, even if my circumstances weren't broken, or if I wasn't broke, like financially or like mentally, like I just felt broken for a big chunk of that space. And so, you know, we talk about the transformation journey, and we spoke a lot about that in the first season, and God started taking it back to the transformation journey for me. Like, what is that process of going from broken to being loved, and that transformation journey in that. And so I thought that this would be a great episode to start off the new year, especially with going into 2023, like talking about, okay, so what is broken first and foremost, and then going into being loved after that. So, you know, I wanted us to really do some self-reflection on those broken stages, because like broken can look like so many different things, you know. Someone else's broken can be depressed, like it can be anxiety, just like broken can mean a lot. And I know that we have so many conversations off camera. So like so much, me and Kay, we have so many emotional conversations, and so I felt like this would be a perfect episode, because a lot of people see that you are this makeup artist, this like Instagram just baddie, like people just see her, like this aesthetic that Kay gives, and I'm like, they don't even know, just like they see the power of your beauty, but they don't even, I wanted people to be able to experience the power of your words, because you have like an amazing story, and you are you're just very graceful in your words, and you can help a lot of people through your story. So I thought this would be an amazing episode.
Oh, I'm so excited. Let's
get
into it, okay?
Right, so let's get into it. So first and foremost, like starting off, I wanted to really break down the process of what does broken look like. Not only in this season, what did it look like this past year? What is broken? Like, so if you want to talk about for you, what does broken look like? Like, what was broken?
I think that this is a very interesting question.
Let me get calm.
Yes.
It's going to be
okay, let me lean back a little bit. But I do think this is a very interesting question, because people don't look like they're broken. So it's very hard to say, okay, what does someone else look like when they're broken? For me, when I'm broken, it's very hard to tell in my opinion.
Right.
Because I do such a good job making myself unaware of what my broken feels like, or making myself unaware of me being broken in general. I do such a good job making sure that no one else is able to see that, because I hide it so good with me. But I'll be very honest with you. Last night I had a broken moment, and I won't say I'm completely crushed. The way I've been looking at things in this season is that God is not doing things in my life to break me, but to build me. So even though I'm getting like chipped away in certain areas in my life, and these empty voids are there, I have to remember that these areas will get rebuilt. So
like they're under construction right now.
Yes.
Renovation.
Yes. And so, like, for a prime example, last night, broken for me, and this happens often, or not even often, but when I am in these stages, I'll have these episodes where it kind of starts with overthinking. And I think I've done a good job. Like, I mean, last year my overthinking had gotten me to a point where I had public anxiety or social anxiety, but I think that my overthinking now, I can like do a good job keeping it in private. But it always begins with the overthinking, and then it'll start to go into distractions within the next hour, because my mind is just rambling and thinking on and on. None of the last thought has nothing to do with the next one, but it all correlates into pain, the same pain, or a reason why I feel like I'm not going to get to where I need to be because of the state that I'm in, the mental state that I'm in. So then the distractions come. Then I'm trying to watch TV shows. I'm trying to clean. I'm trying to do my makeup. I'm trying to do things. And then when that doesn't shut the noise up, I'm stuck in a place where I feel very lonely. And that's when, I'm a crybaby. For those who don't know, I cry about any and everything.
Yes.
Okay?
I'm a good crybaby too, though.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm gonna cry. Like,
yeah.
And I like to cry. Like, I'm like the type of person. I'd be like, I just want some chicken, and I just want to cry. Like, I want to eat and cry. Like, I'm
like
just
anything on the spot too. Like, I can hear something, and then the waterworks will come. But when the noise doesn't get shut out completely,
it's like when a mask starts to form.
yeah, and that's where I start to feel everything physically, like the weight of everything that I'm thinking about. It starts to hit me physically, and then I'll go into the crying, and then at the end of this like breakdown of me feeling like so alone and so broken, I always turn back to the one source that I be avoiding in the midst sometimes, and that's God. And it's just like the scripture said, because I know that God is just love, there's nothing to be ashamed of when I come to him and I'm in this state of where I'm just crying and I don't know why. I'm just overthinking and I don't know why. God is not forsaking me in my time of hurt. He's not turning away from me. He's not saying, you don't deserve me right now in this moment. So, at the end of, or in the middle of me having this breakdown, like last night's example, it's like, okay, I know the moment that I call God's name, he's going to be listening and everything will be fine. But the longer that I sit here and I just keep it all to myself and think that I can just sleep it away or I can just distract it away, it's never going to go away. So the moment that I call on God and I just start talking, maybe not even like having full sentences or not even understanding, but the moment that I call God's name, I know that he hears my heart. I know that he hears what I'm trying to say. I know that he
like
gets
even
it.
when I can't form my own words, Lord, hear my tears, hear my heart type.
I know that it's God in. So, that always reminds me at the end of it. But that's normally how broken goes for me. I'm able to.
Yeah, like even when you were like talking, like a big piece that when I think about broken and I think about even my broken moments, that I really grasped from yours is like this feeling of like, when I was sitting down writing my notes and I was thinking, okay, so what does broken look like? One thing that screamed at me was alone. Like, it feels like a heavy weight of isolation because you start to feel alone, because like even how you said the process of like, first there's the thoughts, And then when you can't quiet the thoughts, the distractions come. And when the distractions aren't working, now you're like making yourself isolated, because now it's like I feel really alone, so I'm just going to put myself in isolation anyways, because the deeper I get into this, the harder it is for me to put on a mask.
Yeah.
The harder it is for me to pretend, the deeper I'm in. So now when I feel like I can't really pretend anymore, it's time for me to start pushing myself into isolation. Not even cutting off my friends, but ignoring phone calls a little bit more.
Yeah.
Not answering, not replying before you know it. It's been like weeks and months, and you don't, not only do the people you know that care about you don't recognize you, you don't recognize yourself. And so like I really thought about the process of like alone, like even my example, like I know you said that last night was even a breakdown moment for you. For me, a big chunk of my broken space, feeling like I was in a pit, was over this past summer. Or no, not the summer. It just felt like the summer. Oh, it felt like the summer, Lord. No, it was the summer. I'm thinking about, because we just got off winter break. So yeah, so this past summer, it was really hard for me. Like the last month of school, the last month of my freshman year, I was really kind of just going through the motions, mentally starting to like drain. So by the time I made it home, oh my goodness, I was in such a dark space, and I kept trying to pretend like I wasn't, and it was making it really hard to interact, to engage with my family, to engage with the people back at home in Chicago, and I like one of my great uncles, and I love him so much because he could like see it. There's like, even when I told you like yesterday when we were walking, and I'm like, you have a certain aura, and like I can even see it in your eyes when you're not happy and you're like trying to like fight it. Like I cried every night almost over the summer. I used to get so irritated. I never forget, y'all. I went to the nail shop with my mom. Like I drove to the nail shop, and I was already like on the brink of just like breaking every day, and so the nail tech irritated me too, so I was mad. So I'm like, oh, I'm ready to go. And my mom, the trigger. And my mom wasn't even ready to go either, so she stayed, and I just left her with the car, and I walked all the way home. Now listen, I walked back to my grandma's house. First of all, we stay in the hood. When I made it back to my grandma's house, her and my uncle were so mad that I walked all the way back home. Like, they was like, I remember calling my sister, like, but I started just walking a lot during my broken moments. Like, because I needed that, while I was in that space alone, like, I needed to just breathe. Like, I felt like I was suffocating. Because even when you're alone, it still feels like there's something just like pressing up against you. And something that I learned while I was just sitting alone a lot in the brokenness was like God was saying so clearly to me. I was listening to the song Gyra by Maverick City, and God like shouted out so clearly to me through the lyrics, I'm closer than I've ever been before. And he's like, you feel like because you're in your darkest space, I'm nowhere to be found, but I'm closer than I've ever been to you before. Like, I am with you in your pain. You are not alone. Like, and that was just like such a huge relief off my shoulders, because even though you ain't saying we getting out of here just yet, but you letting me know like, oh my goodness, like I'm not alone. Like you're still with me, because when you get to a dark space like that, 9 times out of 10 you got in there because you felt like you weren't good enough, or you felt like you were the problem. So to know that even in my disgrace for myself, you still have all the grace for me. Because you're like, oh God, even in my disgrace for myself, you still have all the grace for me, because you told me I'm not alone. Like I'm closer. God was saying your pain has pushed me closer to you than any big success or huge opportunity that you could have gotten. Like I'm closer to you than I've ever been in your life before. Like we here.
Right.
Like I've never taken you out of pain to keep you in another dark space. Like I'm with you, and that was like a huge relief, because it's hard to ask for help when you're broken, because it's hard to even admit that you're broken, especially when you're pretending.
It's heavy on that, and I also feel like another thing that I feel in the midst of the brokenness, especially just not knowing or understanding why, is annoyance. I get frustrated frustrated. I get annoyed with this. I don't want it anymore. I don't
Yes.
want to deal with it anymore. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't know why it's happening. And that's another thing with that annoyance. That's another thing that makes me push it deeper, deeper, and deeper into my bottle, because it's like I am so annoyed with this that I'm just gonna act like it's not even there anymore. But also heavy on, like, it's crazy because when you mentioned Gyra, the other night, last night, I had decided to take a nap because I had got hit with this wave of sadness, like, as soon as I got home, as soon as I left your house, and I had to wash my clothes.
I'm good to sleep some pain
Yeah.
away. Like, I'm good for a good nap. Like, oh God, life is not going good. I'm just gonna go to bed.
So I had to seriously.
I'm just gonna go to bed. Like, help me out,
So
Lord.
I had to, wash my clothes or whatever, and it's 8:00, girl. It's 8:00, and I'm like, bro, I don't want to feel this anymore. I'm so annoyed. I can't shut up the thoughts. I had to wash my clothes. I've been tried all these distractions. I've even, like, sometimes I'll try to eat to distract myself. That don't work. Watching Hannah Montana, you know what I'm saying? Like, nothing like that. So I go to sleep at 8:00. I'm at the right age.
I'm
about to
you
be
be
20.
watching Hannah? I be loving watching Hannah.
It's a nice, like,
Princess
sweet
and the
show.
Frog and Trolls is like my comfort though. When I'm sad.
I'm more of like an Abbott,
Abbott Elementary.
Yeah, that's my comfort.
Y'all, we love Abbott Elementary
That's
over
our
here,
show.
okay?
And I'm gonna rewatch it over and over.
Abbott Elementary, girls.
Okay. But yeah, I decided to go to sleep at 8, thinking that I would wake up and it would be the next day. But of course, who sleeps for a whole 12 hours like that?
Yeah,
like,
that's insane. I
so
think you forced it.
yeah, I definitely
Look, I think you forced it.
And I woke back up at 11, and the only thing that kept playing through my mind, and I hadn't listened to any gospel music that day, so it was just really like, what is going on here? The only thing that was playing through my mind is, you are enough, and that just kept, the you are enough just kept playing. I'm just like,
we
bro.
love Maverick City and got me through some
And
time.
I'm just thinking in my head, like, God, are you trying to force me to listen to this song right now? Like, I'm just like, and then
well, look, when you already going through it, it's like, God, I don't got time for your cute little tactics.
Right.
Okay, get straight to the point this time.
Yeah, and so that got me out. That, like, got me up and out and ready to listen to a song and, like, talk to God. But I was even talking to God. I'm like, this is so annoying, God. Like, I don't know why it's happening anymore. And at this point, I've been tried so hard to keep it down to the point where I no longer became aware of it, or I become so accustomed to it being away that when it's brought back up, it's like a whole shock again. And it's like,
Right.
oh, well, I am going through this. Like,
Because you're like disregarding it. So
Yeah, and
it's like you started believing you're pretending. Like you
Yeah.
started to actually believe what you're pretending in.
And-
But even when you were even when you were talking just now, like talking about like the annoyance that you felt from it and everything, like I really just could hear God say, because I was just thinking about like it really be like that though, for real. And like a big chunk of even when we first started praying together and everything, like I would talk about you have to be honest with God.
Yeah.
Like that's what comes in that relationship, and God's like, because a lot of people, some people when you hear this, you might be like, what do you mean? You're annoyed. Like you were telling God you're annoyed and stuff like that. And God is like, that's what's missing in a big piece of your healing and in a big piece in our relationship with each other. Like your relationship is always going to look different with God than what my relationship looks like, than what Kay's relationship looks like, or anyone else's. However, it's the magnitude, the significance of honesty in that relationship is so heavy. And I could not move anywhere in my healing with God until I was able to be honest with God about, okay, I'm angry because of this. Yeah. I'm annoyed because of this. And so many times we get so fearful. I'll never forget being in church and, because I grew up in church my whole life. And I am so forever grateful. I always say this. I'm grateful for my uncle, who's also my bishop, and I'm grateful for my grandmother, and like how they raised us up in a church, but they also allowed us to have a relationship with God where we did not have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And taught us that, and that goes back to the verse, the scripture, God is love.
Yeah,
Love isn't messy, love isn't judgmental, and so understanding that in love we gotta communicate, we gotta be honest with each other, and God is like, I can't get you out of something you won't even openly admit to me. okay, Kay, you're annoyed. What you annoyed about? Like, let's talk about this. Like, let's be real. I couldn't get out of honestly, because so many people ask me a lot, how did you break from that depression that you say that you dealt with? Like, are you, I'll never forget this boy asked me, are you sure you're not depressed no more? Like, I'm like, yes, you want me to? And so, but it's like, I could never really be freely released from that if I didn't be honest with God. But listen now, something you gotta understand, you be honest, I hope you're ready for honesty back.
Okay.
Because God, one thing me, Kay, and the rest of the girls in our prayer calls have realized, like even this week, God gave it to us good.
He's not holding back.
Last week, he checked us.
He's not holding back.
Everybody was getting checked, okay?
Yeah.
You can ask my sister, because God really checked her. But,
we love you.
we love you. But God don't play either. There's moments where honesty has to be just as much as you can give it, can you receive it? Yeah. Because there's that accountability thing again. And like really understanding in this year, and I hear it so clearly, in this year, you can't push forward, you can't do anything without you choosing to be honest first. Just like, shout out to Michael Todd, Pastor Michael Todd. Like, we love him.
Yeah.
I was in Kay's room one day, and we're listening to videos, and I was on TikTok, and a sermon of his came up, and he was talking, he says, lying is the new currency of our culture. And that'll make some folks mad, because that's calling, I'll be honest, that's calling me out, that's calling everybody out. Now, I'm not a liar, though. I'm not up there with y'all.
Right,
but like,
it's like anything. Anything.
The smallest
thing. Like a joke or like a prank.
Yeah. Like, you just be out of line. Pay attention this week to when you be talking. I bet you gonna realize, I be just lying.
I lied about that. Like
for no reason. Like, why you lie? And so like really checking yourself in honesty this year. Yeah. Moving forward. Oh God, I hear you. Moving forward this year. Can I be honest? Not just honest. And God is saying you're so quick to say you're honest and you're blunt with your friends. You're honest and you're blunt with your man, with your girl, with your relationships, even with your mama. Can you be honest with yourself?
Can you? That is
like big. It's heavy. It's hard. Because when I had to check myself and be like, no, you're the problem because you want to be victim. Mm-hmm. That hit and that hurt. Mm-hmm. But I was like, okay, God, okay, like, but this is what I need to hear because I'm trying to heal. You can't heal and stay victim. That don't work like that. You gotta figure it out. You can't be broken and still be lying or still be people pleasing. God is not man. Why are you trying to people please with him? He knows your heart. I just want to hear you say it. Okay, God, this is what I'm struggling with. God, free me from my anxiety. That's just like even when like people won't do therapy or something like that. And it's like, because I don't want to be called crazy. Lord, free me from the anxiety I am suffering with, because just as much as you disregard, you finna start acting like you don't know what's going on every time it hits. Just like even when you're saying you bottle it up and you pretend so good, you start believing what you're pretending with, and so when it hits you again, you're kind of like, what in the world? Like, I'm here, and it's just a cycle. Yeah, it's a tiring cycle. But that goes into my next point when I thought about like what this broken looked like in the season. Something else that stood out to me was waiting for perfection. Waiting to be perfect. Waiting, there's that perfect word. That perfect word is like my kryptonite. Yeah. I struggle with that to this day. Like learning and understanding that everything can't be perfect. Like God be pushing to me, just work with what you got. Yeah. Even I love Clark Atlanta's motto. Yeah. Shout out to Clark Atlanta.
Find a way to make one. Okay.
Yeah. You. Okay. But yeah, like find a way or make one. Like I feel like that also kind of molds into understanding that like perfection is not the destination. Mm-hmm. And I've really been pushing progression over perfection. Because as long as I progress, that leaves room for me to grow and make mistakes. Mm-hmm. When I journaled yesterday, it asked me, what am I grateful for? And I really sat and I thought, what am I grateful for today? And I was like, I'm grateful for the room that God gives me to grow and evolve in life, like, and to make mistakes. Yeah. Like, imagine if you just were perfect. Like,
there would be nothing to learn from, you know?
Yeah, like, who wants to, like, you're stale. Like, and it's kind of like also like, I'll never forget, I wish I knew his name so I could shout him out. I can't remember it though. I'm so sorry. But there is this young man. He attends Morehouse, and shout out to Morehouse College. He attends Morehouse, and I follow him on like Instagram. And he's like,
you know, we met at the taco truck?
No, I've never met him in person.
Oh, okay.
So I just follow him, and he like makes Instagram videos. He makes like content, like I'm sure he's probably on TikTok too, but makes content. He also does photography, and he talks about like different moments of faith. And there'll be like clips and reels, but they be like really inspirational. And something he said one day was, because he talks about like his struggle with perfection, and I think his dad told him or someone else he heard, but he was talking about the aspect of someone asked him, "What if you shot the most perfect picture today? What happens next?" You can't beat perfection.
Yeah.
So what happens next?
Yeah.
When you shoot for your destination to be perfection, there's no room to grow after that.
Yes.
And that kind of like eased me a little bit, because it's like, and people want to see you grow. Like people want to see that evolution.
Yeah.
But like connecting, waiting for perfection and brokenness, like what broken looks like, because a lot of the times we break and chip at ourselves when we're like looking and reaching for perfection. And like I told you yesterday, something I thought was so cute was just the concept of like, if a taco can fall apart and still be amazing, so can you.
Yeah.
Like I love a good meal. And if my taco ain't like juicing and falling apart, because what taco is juicy enough to just stay that way?
Right.
Like you ain't really, don't bring me around no tacos that's just stale and when you eat it stay the same the whole time.
Right. It's not
If your taco ain't, I don't want parts. Like I don't want parts.
No, really.
I don't want parts. So if
Yeah.
a taco can fall apart and still be amazing,
Yeah.
like so can you. Give yourself grace, room to say, you know what, I had to cry today.
Yeah.
I had to break down.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, yesterday when we talked about when you had brought it to my attention, like you are really waiting for perfection, it just didn't hit me. I was still in the process of like, wait, is this happening? Like, am I really doing this? And then I had my little moment of breakdown last night, and towards the end of it, and this what makes me think about it, because I really have been at a point where I am trying to maximize the amount of success that I can get in what I do in a very short amount of time. And I'm like going at it so hard every single day. I'm going at it to the point where I would rather let go of inserting myself in certain places or in certain groups, because I want to perfect this more than anything else. And last night when I was like towards the end of my moment, and after I prayed, because God is like, it's just so much love, and there's nothing to be ashamed of to go to him with. I realized that, okay, at this moment I have one of two options. I can either sit here and sit in my thoughts and sink into my bed and just cry about it all night and go to sleep, and then go into my first day of the semester a complete wreck. Or I can decide to pick myself up in this moment. This makes me think of Sarah Jake's sermon, Girl Get Up.
Okay, we love a good Sarah. We love a good child.
But sitting right behind the camera, okay?
It definitely is.
But you know, I my second option was, okay, God, I need to pick myself up in this moment, and I just need to wait. I just need to wait on you, and I need to stop trying to pick myself up and go for that perfection instantly. I remember telling God, like, you know, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know even for what reason this is lasting or whatever's going on. But I know that because of the God that I follow and the God that I serve, I know that he is not a God that is going to take me from this broken place, like you said, and put me into a whole completely dark and broken place and just leave me there in the dark.
Right. So
with that being said, I know that if I pick myself up and just wait a little bit, God's going to carry me the rest of the way. And I just have to wait on him. And so I decided, like, you know, I'm no longer going to, now I'm still going to go after all that success that I want.
Okay.
Trust and believe.
It's gonna get locked in.
But I'm not going to let that create this perfect story that I need right away, or try to maximize the amount of perfection, or maximize the amount of I'm okay again in such a short amount of time. And I think sometimes it just takes, you have to choose to pick yourself up. You have to choose.
Yes,
to
heavy on it. It's a choice.
Like if you want to go down the path, if you really want to choose to do what you were called to do, you have no choice but to pick yourself up and say, oh, okay, you know what, God, this hurts. I'm in a place of so much pain that I don't understand why it's happening or what's going on, or it may be things that happening. But yeah, just to acknowledge it and be like, you know what, I'm going to keep going in the midst of this because you have never let me down any other time. I don't have no track record of you leaving me.
Okay.
I don't have no track record of you
God
saying,
is not a man that he shall lie. Like,
yeah, like I don't have
show me the Carfax.
Yeah.
Show me the Carfax when God just wasn't God.
There is, okay, so there's just nothing but goodness. And though I may not see what's going on right now, I may not get it, or like even be able to hear it sometimes, I just gotta trust. I have to keep the same faith that I had in this past couple of months and just trust that this will not last. I will not be stuck here because I know my God will not leave me here. But in the meantime, I gotta pick myself up and do what I gotta do because I still have to go after what I was called to do.
I gotta bring myself out of hell so I can come out with worship.
Yeah, and
like heavy on that.
One thing about like at the end of a prayer, you know, if you pray and you still feel down in the doubts, you probably didn't do it right. Because I mean, you might still feel a little bit like, but there's a sort of sense of relief that you get after you pray. That's like, okay,
peace for sure.
I just gave a piece of this to him, so I'm
making sure that I'm not coming out of this how I went into it.
Absolutely.
So God, I don't care. There's been moments where I still felt the same, so I just laid there and just said Jesus. Until because that name do some things. So until that name shifted some things in my circumstance, in my mind, in my body, I'm gonna sit there and say it. I'm gonna create, and I'm big on setting my atmosphere. We talked about that before on the podcast. Like, set your atmosphere, you know, set that space. But heavy on when you were talking about like it's a choice and the power of acknowledging it, because that even goes into like when someone chooses to do therapy, you don't heal until. And when you choose to do therapy, you have made a choice to acknowledge I'm not okay, or I have to fix this, or there is something with this, or even when you give your life to Christ. When you walk up in those churches, or you say, hey, like I want to join, or I want to give my life to Christ, it started with a choice.
Yes.
When Jesus died and resurrected, God was then entering and giving us our choice. Like, so heavy on, it's a choice. It starts with a choice, which leads me kind of into my next point. When I was thinking about all of this, and God like placed on my heart like a piece of the bridge between that gap of going from broken into being loved is not only like this area of isolation, but it's this idea of being numb. And I remember even when we were out to dinner with like John and stuff, and you're like, well, I don't know what I'm feeling, and like, you know, and it's numbness. And God really began to speak to me and say, just because you don't know what you're feeling doesn't mean you're not feeling anything at all. Like just heavy, and I just feel like I have to repeat that because I don't want that to go over someone's head that really needs to receive that. Just because you don't know what you're feeling does not mean you're not feeling anything at all. And so many times we confuse it with this feeling of numbness, and we begin to speak that over our lives. Baby girl, you are not numb. Bro, you are not numb. Like, numbness is not over your body. It's not over your mind, your heart, your spirit. There is a warrior in you waiting to rise up. I just don't know what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. I will never forget over the summer, I kept telling my sister, y'all, I was heartbroken. And so I kept telling my sister, I'm like, okay. For those of you who have seen Baby Boy, you'll understand this reference. I was in the car and it was raining. And have you seen Baby Boy?
I have.
Kay barely watches like, she ain't barely seen classic, like hood classic. But so I'm in the car, it's raining, and I'm like driving from my uncle's house because had a moment while I was there. I literally told, I'm so dramatic. I literally told him, like, I'm having a moment. I need to leave. I'm about to cry. And he's thinking I'm playing, and I'm like, I'm dead serious. Like, and so I leave, and so I get in the car. It's raining, like pouring down like cats and dogs. My sister, I call her, and my sister, she is someone who is, I love her, oh dear to my heart. But she is definitely that person that will just like, she's not really too emotional. Like, she'll be emotional, but she's not really all that emotional. So I'm like all emotional, all this, just crying. And she's really trying, like, she's feeling for me. Because I'm like, I don't know what this feeling is, man, y'all. It's raining. I feel like Yvette when she's like, you don't love me no more. Like, it's raining. I'm in the car. Yes, like the drama. And I'm sitting on it, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm feeling. Like, I hate it. I've never felt this way before. And I realized, oh God, when you're going through a transformation journey, when you're in the wind of transforming, when you're being remolded, when you're being broken down to be built back up again, there are processes, pieces of the renovation process that you've never experienced before, because what you're about to get into, what you're about to become is brand new. So it's not going to look like that transformation you dealt with when you were like 15 and 16 and 17, because you were being molded into this young woman, but now you're being molded in becoming this woman of your purpose now. So what I went through at 15 and how I transformed from 15 to 17 and like that whole journey of my life, it doesn't look the same as me entering into my new decade of 20.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't, I realized, like, God's like, there's new, as you evolve and elevate, there's new demons. There's new battles that you're gonna fight. So I'm building your endurance. Oh God, how we talked about that before, like how God had hit me. Me and Kay were talking one day on the phone, and I'm like, I'm really realizing now that it never gets easier.
Yeah.
God just builds our endurance. The battles sometimes, in fact, get harder. Yeah. But our endurance has been built that what hit me and knocked me down when I was 15, 16, the enemy gonna have to try a lot better, because you can't get me how you tried to get me through my mom before. You can't get me how you tried to get me through insecurities before, because those battles don't even hit my peripheral anymore. Like, they don't even hit me where I'm standing. I'm on a whole nother level, baby. I don't see ignorance like that. Like, I'm in a different field. I'm in a different zone. Girl, you trying to fight how you fought before, you got to switch it up. You used to be a right hooker, but now you got to be this southpaw. Like, now you got to really get up like that.
Yeah.
Shout out to those of y'all who probably know what that meant. But it's like a boxing term. But really, God started to, like, show me that, like, you don't understand what you're feeling because it's a different space. Yeah. You're in a different season. You're in a different year than what it was before. It's not going to always look the same. Yes, if I did it before, I can do it again, but that don't mean I gotta make it look the same.
Yeah.
God is an evolving God. Like, it's gonna shift. This is a year of new. Even when God talked to us about it being a year of different. So you can't expect to fight the same when you know you in a year of different. Like, I'm moving in a different space. God, I want to be in different boardrooms. I want to be in different groups, different conversations, different opportunities. And God is saying, so why do you want to fight the same? And in order to fight a little bit different, you're going to have to feel some things that are a lot different. You're going to get attacked differently. So now you have to be on that enough to say, you know what, I'll recognize and I'll acknowledge. So also being able to acknowledge the fact, because sometimes we don't know what we're feeling. Like, you know what, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I know I am feeling. Because I'm not tapped out, baby. I'm not a dead body. I'm not cold yet.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm not cold yet, so I ain't numb. I'm tapped in. I'm feeling every hit that I'm getting, but just know I'm feeling it. So that means as long as I can feel, I'll fight. Oh God, as long as I can feel, I'll fight. I'm gonna keep fighting. But the moment I say I'm numb, I'm cold, baby, I'm not a corpse. I'm not giving up. That's finito.
Okay. Finito. All right.
Okay, that is
yes. I think that's huge. I think that's
Deceased.
huge. Like, being able to differentiate, not knowing the feeling and saying, you know what, I'm not. And I didn't want to use that word.
I can tell you're like, I don't know. I mean, we can say that, but
because it's like there has been jabs thrown. There's been lessons learned. There's been traumatic experiences. There's been
bridges burned.
Different. Yeah. There's been different. And because of that, like, I think with me, it was kind of like a back-to-back, but not like back-to-back. It was just like boom, boom. And it was just such a, I kept describing it as weird. This is weird.
Yes.
It's a weird feeling.
Because
like, it's
God
just
makes sure we're never in the comfortable. It's like,
yeah, and it's like, I'm not 100% happy, but I'm not sad. I'm not in the dumps. I don't feel myself spiraling into a depression. I just feel like I'm not me. I'm not myself, and I don't like this feeling. And but to know that I'm feeling, my fight is still there. You know,
yes.
like
As long as I feel, I'll fight,
and it's still in me. You know, it's never on me. It's still in me. You know, so it's like activating that, acknowledging whatever it is. It might take a breakdown at night. It might take a moment to like
heavy,
for someone
listen
to tell
that
me.
heavy on the. It might take a breakdown at night. Sometimes you have to release that, or sometimes, like you said, a moment for someone to tell you that.
Yeah, like this isn't you. Like, you know, I see the difference from the outside looking in, and sometimes when we're in that weird, quote unquote, we think it's numb feeling, we don't think that anyone else sees it, because it's like we're not completely sad, like, you know what I'm saying? So how could you? But it's definitely an off feeling. But to know that you're feeling, the fight is still in you. So you have to make a decision. You have to choose. Like, am I just gonna feel this and stay stuck here, or am I gonna bring that fight up out of me? You know?
Right, warrior rise up, and it even goes into the danger of not feeling, because when you think about, I would rather still feel it, because when I stop feeling, because you internally have locked up, have closed out. That's like if someone keeps stabbing you in the side, just keep stabbing you, or you keep getting shot in this one spot. You're losing blood, but because you stop feeling, you don't even know. Oh God, that's like, Holy Spirit, I hear you. Allow me to say it how you're giving it to me. When you stop feeling, then you're not even recognizing that you're at a loss, that you're losing something, that you're losing blood, you're losing your spirit, you're losing your Oh God, there is someone who is listening, and God is saying, because you mentally and emotionally said, I'm gonna stop feeling, I'm gonna lock up real quick.
I'm tapped out.
You can't even recognize you're losing your character. You're losing who you are, because you've tapped out of what's happening to you. You gotta fight back. You gotta say, you know what, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and I'm about to get real quick, because I'm not gonna just I've come too far. Sometimes you gotta some of y'all gotta remind yourself of what you've experienced, your own testimony. Sometimes you gotta remind yourself of your own testimony. I've come too far to let this battle take me out. Like, if I was gonna do that battle could have took me out. But you're losing something. You're losing your character. You're losing your voice. You're losing your beauty. You're losing you.
Yes.
And because you can't see that you're losing it, because you don't feel it.
Yes.
So if my eyes is closed, if I'm talking to Kay and someone's stabbing me, and I don't know, because I've said I can't feel it no more. I'm numb to the pain. I don't feel it anymore. I am literally setting myself up for failure. I am losing blood. And before I can even act on it, before I can acknowledge it and recognize it, I dropped it. Now I'm cold. Now I'm really numb. And so it's like, don't wait till you in a deeper pit. Don't wait till you can't move no more. And act on it. As long as I can feel, I'll fight. And just because you're fighting, just because you're still pushing your purpose, doesn't mean that it's all gonna be cherries and rainbows. Like, it's gonna be moments where you have to cry. Like Kaden said, she had a moment last night. I cried all summer. Like, literally, there's gonna be moments where there is isolation. But like God said, I'm closer than I've ever been before. Hear me when I say that, daughter. Hear me when I say that, son. Like, there is a young man that needs to hear that I'm closer than I've ever been before. You can push everybody away, but guess what? I'm gonna sit there and I'll be in the room with you, waiting on you to call me.
Yes.
Waiting on you to ask me to enter into. Yes. And that goes into the next point of conversation being a ladder up out of brokenness.
Uh-huh.
So like and you can tell me your experience with this, because for me, when I thought about, okay, because we talked about how like Kay has, like, even Kay, for example, you've acknowledged like, okay, I'm in this weird space right now. And just because you acknowledge it doesn't mean you get straight to point B.
Yeah.
And you're already I'm being loved again, like I'm loving and everything is perfect. So like understanding for me, I was like, okay, so what's a big piece of getting out of that? Like what's a part of that journey in getting out of it? And I realized conversation was. Like it took me to, after you start being honest with yourself and start having those moments with yourself, you have to now have moments, I've realized, where you have to have conversations with others.
Yeah.
Conversations with certain people that are very real and very hard.
Yes.
And don't confuse, you guys, because, Lord, conversation is not closure.
Okay.
So don't confuse the two, because you receive your closure from God. And I had to learn that the hard way, and I really appreciate that lesson, that I receive my closure from God. I don't have to seek man for it. So understanding that conversation is not a closer. It's not a closer. It's not something to close and end something and end a chapter. But conversation is supposed to be meant for freeing you. For freeing up something that was holding you bound internally or externally. Like conversation helps open up a window of when you do it the right way, when you communicate the right way.
Yeah.
But what was your experience with like conversation in different moments?
Well, I will start off before I even say anything about like how conversation has helped, especially within this trimester of my life, or even since I've met you. Something that I think about often to like just take me out of that one moment and kind of get me into the groove, because I won't lie, I had this breakdown literally last night.
Right.
And today was hard. I showed up. I picked myself up and I showed up.
Yes.
But it was still hard. I still wanted to come home just like, oh, like, do I have to go to class or do I have to finish this? But something I tell myself is God did not bring you this far just to bring you this far. You know, like you don't stop here. Like you didn't come this far just to stop here, you know? And so that's like something that helps me as far as like pulling myself up that ladder. But I will say conversation, I've had some of the most mature and intimate and just like intellectual conversations about myself and like what I've gone through, or just like healing in general with you. And I feel like when you meet that person, and this is, you know, for anyone, because you can't conversate with everyone, you know, it's not about,
that's a
like,
word right there.
Yeah. Like it's not gossip, you know?
Moment.
So
heavy on, it's not, when you conversate, it's not gossip. Heavy on that. Like,
And so I feel like within the year that I've known you, you have, in these conversations, have brought a lot to my attention that I may have buried or that I may have not been aware of before, and then that gives me a whole different insight, that like gives me a whole different view, a completely different perspective on whatever it is that I'm going through. So I do think that conversation goes a long way, and you know, I think finding that person that can be your peace when you conversate. For me, I would say, like, I don't find a lot of peace in having conversations with my parents all the time. You know, some things are to be discussed with them, but I find a lot of comfort talking to God and Naya most of the time, you know. And, but to hear that like feedback right away from a person, someone who's directly in front of you in the physical, like Naya, you have been that piece for me. And yeah, you know, so I think conversation has gone a big way as far as opening up the doors that were closed, or the doors that weren't even peeked into, the doors of realization that, okay, this is something that I can fix. Like I probably was clouded or didn't know what to do in this area of this situation, but after having this conversation, it's like, okay, I have to relief.
This is something I can fix.
Yeah, and I think I can do this, and I see where I need to go. It's not completely like just tunnel vision at the end of the tunnel. It's just a black wall. the tunnel opens up and there's light shedding through, you know. So it's like that conversation and finding that person that you truly can give you feedback and won't feud or fuel your hurt or fuel your pain or come to you with more negative energy. Like someone that is going to return positive energy to you, that's going to speak life into you, that's going to speak life into your areas that are like an empty void, that is going to speak,
encourage you in different areas. And just like even conversations of like acknowledgement, like I had to have moments where I had to like talk to my sister, or even a conversation that really helped me understand the power of conversations when I was deep in the middle of my brokenness was with my great grandma. Anybody that knows me knows that like me and my great grandma is like this. That's twin. That's gang. Like that's like my bestie for real though. That's like my best friend. And like I love my grandma so much, so very much. And my great grandma is old school. Like she be trying to like operate and work with our times and shifts. But there are just certain things that I see a certain type of way and she sees a certain type of way. And so I remember just after crying all night, one night, I just was like, ugh. And I remember when I went to go talk to her, it was just us in the living room and it was early in the morning and we're just talking. And I just tell her, I am so hurt. Like I was like, I am just so hurt, I can't stop crying. And I just really bare to her where I'm at right now. And not because something you have to be careful of is entering into conversations when you're already fragile, seeking expectations. Expectations of advice. And expectations of how the other person should be. So that's why it's also very careful about being intentful and intentional in who that you conversate with. I didn't go into it because I was already so fragile. I didn't go into it like I need her to give me this. I need her to say this to me. Like I need this from her. But it just was like what I needed more than anything, and I didn't realize it in that moment, was I just needed a space to be brave enough to admit to her what I denied to everybody else. I needed a brave space so I can admit what I was denying to everybody else. And she gave me that. Like she just was looking and she was listening to me. And she let me just talk. And she let me know how loved I was. And she gave me just great words of wisdom from such a beautiful soul. And she actually surprised me. When you don't go into things with expectations, you get surprised. Like I was actually surprised about some of the words of advice that she gave me because I didn't think that she would agree with what I was talking about, but she actually was being there. And so it was that's when I realized like conversation is super important because it will help you, and they will also tell you things that you can't see when you're so deep in. Like I was able to get advice about like even being able, like how you said, like just that extra push to show me like this can be fixed. Or not even just fixed, but this ain't even broken for real. Like I can just get on up. It just needs a band-aid. Like, like understanding that, like, and so conversation being so important. And a lot of the times I feel we run from conversation because conversation makes us uncomfortable. And we run away from it because we think it'll make things a lot harder in our lives. And when you also have to have conversations, we know that sometimes after them, they'll show us that we need to leave some of the things that are enabling our brokenness. And so when you get worried because you know it's going to force you or help you recognize that it's time for you to leave, you're like, because staying is easier. Being content is easier than saying, you know what, I'm gonna have to do it. Like it would have been so much easier for you to just say, I'm not going to this late class. I'm gonna sit in my bed and just have another day. Like, but being content is easier. But if you pushing for purpose, I'm letting you know right now, if you pushing for purpose, be ready to be uncomfortable. Because that's what growth lives in, the uncomfortable. It lives in that space. And conversations can be extremely uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like, even having conversations of having to just, like, acknowledge, like, even to certain people, like, hey, you know what? I allowed this behavior. It's probably a little bit on me, and I'm gonna have to let this go. You know, so a lot of the times I think conversation is just super important because it helps you acknowledge, it helps you recognize, and it's freeing. It's so freeing. Like, it feels so freeing to not have to bear the weight by yourself of everything. And that's why God created people so you can fellowship, so you can have moments. Like, I've created a sister at Clark, you know, like, it's freeing when you have these moments. And so that was like a big piece. But one of our last things that I wanted to talk about before we wrap up is when I was thinking about, okay, so now when we get to the being loved portion, God, like, how does this go, God? Like, and I was thinking about being loved. How did I get to that space of, like, being able to, because one, you have to be able to receive love. A lot of the times it's very easy for us to, like, give all this love and pour into someone that we really care about. You're so ready to pour. And before you know it, you're on E because you ain't got poured into yet. Oh God, I hear you. Because you don't even know how to receive love. Someone can be giving you love, and it's like there's a hole in your cup. As they're pouring, it just keeps falling out. God, thank you for that. It's like God is saying some of you are like getting love, but you don't know how to receive it. So the holes in your cup, and you're pouring into them, and they're able to receive it. So their cup is full, on overflow, as a matter of fact. And here you have your cup, and you just got a hole at the bottom, and it's just leaving as quick as it's going. As quick as it's coming, it's just leaving. And so God was saying to me that there's an assignment even in your brokenness. And that was so heavy because God just revealed that to me. I've been had, like, the broken episode thought up even before, like, Kay was going to be a guest. And God, like, spoke to me recently, like, there's still an assignment even in your brokenness. Life does not stop because it's painful or you're hurt right now. Life still goes. So you have to still keep going. And your assignment is you. Your assignment is to water you. You've spent so much time loving on others, so much time being the advice friend, being the caregiver, being the provider, the intercessor, being like, you have spent so much time doing all these things. Okay, so now your assignment while you're in the pit is to water you. I'm going to make it dark all around you while you're in the pit. The circumstance is going to be dark. You can't really see nothing else, but you only have access to yourself. You can't see anything else. You can't see how that business opportunity is going right now because you're in the dark from it. You can't see what your ex is doing because I done blocked you from the social media accounts. You can't see you can't even hear what they saying when they talk about you. You can't see what's on TV because I done made your subscriptions in. Oh God. You can't see nothing. I blacked out everything. And the only thing you have access to in this dark room, this dark space, is you. Oh God. The only thing you have access to is you. So water you. I challenge you to do something with the seed that has already been planted in you, with the water that's in this room with you. Oh God, okay, I hear you. I challenge you to do something with the seed that's been planted in you. The tears that form the water in the room with you, that you have had to shed in this darkness, and you only have access to you. So what do you do with it? What are you doing with your tears? What are you doing with the seed that's inside of you? What are you doing with you? So God began to say that your assignment is watering you. Your assignment is to push into you. You got to push even through pain. Yes. Purpose don't stop. We had a prayer call on Monday, and God began to reveal that just because, see, when you're a woman of your plan, or when you're a man of your plan, pain ain't never a part of your plan. Who writes out and factors in pain?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through this.
God, make sure you get my heart broken this time, or God, make sure the devil just gets me 10 good attacks. Look, 10 good attacks this year. Like, no one plans for pain.
Yeah.
So God is saying you can't be a man of your pain. I mean, you can't be a man of your plan. You can't be a woman of your plan. But instead, this year, I'm building you up. Not breaking you, but I'm building you up to be a woman of your purpose, a man of your purpose. Because guess what? There's pain in purpose. It takes some pain to produce some things. It takes some pain to birth some things. And beauty comes when you're able to sit there and water you, you see the beauty in brokenness. Because guess what? I had to learn that I hope if you don't hear anything else from this episode, you hear God can make a vain thing purposeful. He can make something that everyone else said was vain, that everyone else said was useless, that everyone else said was not good enough, was never going to be enough, the very thing that their own parents gave up on. God is saying, I can make a vain thing purposeful. So what are you going to do? What are you in this year? Because it's bigger than just a season, it is a year. There is something greater in you. You're asking me, how do I get to being loved? You gotta prepare yourself to receive some love. So what are you? How about you do to yourself what you've been doing unto others, what you've been doing for others? Yes. And like, I really started to think about the example of taking care of a plant. Yes. Like, I know you love your plant. Like, Kay kept trying to convince me to talk to the plants all last year because she would talk to her plants.
It works.
it works. And so God is like, it takes a lot of work when you deal with plants. Yeah. Because you have to show them a lot of TLC, a lot of, come on, Michael Jackson fans, tender loving cow. Okay. And so you have to show that too. And so do that to you. Like, water you. And really, something big is going to begin to produce. Yes. Because you deserve all the love that you've been emptying out. God is saying, I'm trying to fill up some holes in this season of your life, in this year of your life, because you got a hole in your cup. You're not being able to receive some love, and I really want to help you be able to receive. And we got to start with ourselves, our assignment. Yes. Your assignment is you. And if you're successful, being successful in your assignment will push you into a season of being loved. It will push you into a space of being loved because you're able to receive it. So many times we're stubborn and we're like, I can give. But the moment someone offers anything, you're like, that's suspicious. Right. That's weird. Yeah. Like, I don't want to. Yeah. And you're like, but I like to accept things because I'm that person too. Like, I don't like to accept things because I don't want them to say they did it for me. Right. And it's like, what are you? Like, everything's suspicious. Like, that's definitely what God began to speak about. Water you. Be in that space.
And it really does start with you when it comes to the receiving the love and feeling the love. I mean, it always is great to have the reassurance to know that when you're in such this dark place, you feel that no one is, or you're not deserving of anyone around you. But no one else around you is thinking that. Everyone else is pretty much waiting for you to, like, run to them. They're waiting with open arms. Yeah. Everyone around you does love you. It does. Yes, it literally starts with you. And it starts with watering yourself. It starts with being able to say, you know what, I'm going to pick myself up today. I'm going to keep going today. I'm going to love myself today. If I can't do anything else, if I don't feel like putting my effort into anything else, I'm going to put a little bit of effort into at least loving myself, at least showing myself some type of self-love in some way.
That's on my priority.
Yes, you know, and in that practice and that consistency will then just attract exactly what you're looking for, whatever you think that your image of love is, because you know how you love yourself. You wouldn't want anything less than that. So,
and that made me think about, like, last thing, but even when you're saying heavy on the word practice and the practices that you partake in, I'll never forget, like, right before my birthday, me, Kay, and a close friend of ours were talking, and we were just having a very transparent moment where we shared with each other where we were mentally and emotionally. And I remember just sharing a little bit of, like, my insecurities with you guys, and you were like, a piece of your advice was like, you know, I challenge you to just hug yourself like this. Yeah. Like, just give yourself a hug every day. Yeah. Show some appreciation.
I love the self hugs.
Yes.
Y'all should try it for real.
Yes.
Like,
add some self practices into, like how you'll treat yourself. Give yourself a little bit of buying flowers for yourself every once a month, and speaking affirmations into yourself every morning or every night, and things of that nature.
Everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
but before we close out, we have a question that was asked, and I want both of us to answer that question, and then this will be the last thing. So it was asked, and we kind of just answered it. How do I start practicing loving myself when I've hated / ignored myself for so long? I'll let you start. Or do you want me to go? Again, it was, how do I start practicing loving myself when I've hated / ignored myself for so long?
You know what I do? Well, what I did, and it's been a while. It's maybe been since my early, starting into high school, where I felt I had the most insecurities. But something that I can do now when I think about any insecurities that might surface, like come to the surface level, or even like get in my mind or get in the way, is what would baby Kirstin, my full name is Kirstin, y'all. What would baby Kirstin think? Do you hate the child version of you? Do you hate the baby version of you? Do you hate the toddler version of you? The middle schooler, the most innocent version of yourself? Go back to her, and just showing love to that childhood version of yourself, and then looking in the mirror and saying, look at us now. Like, I am at a place where, forget the physical, but I am at a place where we never thought we would ever be in our entire life. If you were to ask 12-year-old me, where do I want to go to college? I would have said, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to do school after school. So being able to
Look at school after school.
Like, what?
Set up.
So, just being able to look in the mirror and say, well, look at you now. And it also makes me think of when you were on the phone with Ajane, and she just gave you that little smirk, and she's like,
yes.
Yeah, hey, gorgeous. Like,
right, I was on the phone with my sister, and she smirked. So I'm like, what you smirking at? And she's like, I just said something to myself. I'm like, tell me. And she's all like, I looked at myself and said, hey, gorgeous.
Yeah, so those practices, looking in the mirror, and another thing, when I do these hugs with myself, they normally come during a state of a mental breakdown or whatever. I always close my eyes and I imagine my younger self running into my arms, and I'm just hugging my younger self. And as my eyes are closed and I can feel myself doing it, I really feel like I'm hugging the younger me, and I'm just hugging myself like, I love you. If no one else, if you never felt loved by anyone else on this earth, I love you so much. And I'm so proud of you. And you would be, oh my gosh, I love you more. But just letting yourself know, you would be so proud of where we are right now. And looking in the mirror every day and saying, forget the physical, I love you for where you are right now.
Yes, for where you are right now. Bump what we trying to get to for this moment in time, but I love you for where you are.
Yeah, and we'll never go back to where we used to be.
Okay,
We never
heavy
go
on, we
backwards.
ain't going back.
So,
we ain't going back.
Yeah.
For me, in a piece of advice in that area definitely would be, I definitely love the aspect of speaking to that younger version of yourself. For me, it's just the little things, and really focusing on the things that I once perceived to be my flaws, the things that were once huge insecurities about myself, giving them a lot more love. I am practicing loving the things that once were made as issues for myself. And also just even constantly speaking affirmations of beauty to myself. How my sister was on the phone oh, good morning, gorgeous. It could be the most random moments. I'll be getting out of the shower, putting on lotion. I've made it a part of my daily regimen and my nighttime routine. When I get out the shower and put on lotion, I'm like, look at this beautiful chocolate skin. I'm like a commercial. Yes.
Naturally.
I'm just look at this. Who wouldn't? I love you. Girl. Just constantly speaking love to myself, and then even just talking, just like constantly just throwing out love there. Like, you look good. And I've been really learning to, even though this started out as an excuse for me to not have to work out when I stopped working out, but it was like, you know, I love the body God gave me. Like, I love what God produced me with, okay? So just really learning and understanding just this huge amount of love. And it's just super important for me to just do little things. Like, I get myself flowers. And I like to go on dates for myself. Like, solo dates, I love them. I love journaling. Journaling really gives me a moment to just sit down and think, because trust me, like, whoever asks this question, whoever relates to this question, I have been in such a dark space before, especially with insecurities, where I've hated myself. Like, and I do not use the word hated lightly, like, where I hated myself. And I am such a long way from there, because I had to sit with myself. And I had to, like, learn to give so much more love to the areas where I thought were flaws. Like, it took me a moment where I really started thinking, I'm like, girl, I would love me. Like, if I met me, I would love me. Like, learning to really love, embrace those things that you thought were flaws, but they're flawless. Like, embrace that area. Like, because what you see that you might hate, someone else loves. Like, I realize that, because it'd be people where I'm like, I love you, and I realize everyone deals with flaws and insecurities, because they'll be like, oh no, like, I'm having a bad day, and I'm like, what? Like, even with you, I'm like, you're such an it girl, what are you talking about? Like, so understanding everyone has their moments, but you are beautiful. So on that note, walk in your destiny, walk in your purpose. Girl, get up, it's time to flourish.
All right.